Hello everyone, welcome to our January Training Tuesday event for OU Campus. Today's topic is understanding the underscore resources folder. We're going to be going over what goes inside this folder, the types of files there, what they do, and some changes that you can make to them and how that will affect your site. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode as the session is being recorded. If you have a question during the presentation, you may submit it online by clicking on the Q&A tab located on the right-hand side of your screen. Make sure it's the Q&A tab and not chat, so we have your email address in case your question warrants a follow-up reply. Simply type your question into the dialog box at the bottom of the screen and send. If you do, we will attempt to address your questions during the presentation. After the formal presentation has ended, we will review and answer all remaining questions. Your presenter today is Barbara McQuillan, software trainer at OmniUpdate. Barbara, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Erica. So welcome everyone to Understanding the Underscore Resources folder. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start by just a typical overview of some of the folders and files that you may see inside your own underscore resources folder. Each implementation is different, so please keep in mind as we walk through different things here, what you see in your specific instance may be different than what you see here, but I'm really going to be focusing on things that will have similarities. As we go through these different sections listed here, we're going to dive deeply into 3 different pieces just to make sure you have an understanding of how OU templates work, of how to set up a snippet, and how your XSL is organized. So with that, let's just go ahead and jump directly into the system so we can go together. I'm currently looking at my sandbox for my Galena University environment. Scrolling down to the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and open up my direct edit link in a new tab, so it'll keep this Galena sandbox open. Logging in. I'm going to go ahead and log in as a level 10 administrator. This way I'll have complete control over everything that's available here. You'll see across my global navigation board at the top, I do have some additional options here as a level 10 administrator. Some things to be aware of as we're going through today. If you are logged in inside your own implementation and you're following along with me, every time you're going to open up one of those code-based text files, if you open it inside a source code editor, it will automatically check out to you. So I'm going to highly recommend at the end of this session, after I've clicked through all these different things, I'll probably have 40 or 50 individual files that I'll need to check back in. For that, I'm going to highly recommend you use the myCheck.content gadget. So over here on the right-hand side, I have my little plug. Clicking on that, it'll open up my gadget sidebar, and here's my checked-out content. Right now, I have no pages, but before I log out at the end of today, I am going to check this again just to make sure I've checked in anything that I don't need, so it's available to other people if they should need it. So let's start by going over to my Pages list view. I can get there by going to Content and clicking Pages, or clicking on the Pages link inside my breadcrumb. From here, I'm going to enter into the underscore resources folder, and we're going to start by jumping into our CSS. Most implementations are going to have some kind of framework that's going to be the base for your CSS. So right here, I have Foundation as my base. Another popular foundation or framework is Bootstrap, so yours may include that as well. As you're going through what you have here, you will probably have some sort of CSS file that is going to contain particular styling for your school. It's often called main.css or styles.css, maybe website.css. Any of those are going to be specific to your implementation, and they'll have that specific information there for you. So if we look inside our styles.css, let's go ahead and change the default theme, make it a little darker, make it a little bit bigger. So I'm seeing in here are particular CSS rules that apply to the H1 different tag elements inside. My site itself, my A tags, anything like that. In addition to having this main CSS, you may also have individual CSS files for individual page types. So I happen to have a home type page, so these particular CSS rules are being applied to it for the flex slider that's on that page, or the news features that are being listed on that page. I also have an interior.css. So this is being applied to any of my interior type pages. So whenever you have a CSS being called here, you're going to have different selectors that are choosing what's listed in the HTML on the page to be able to apply these rules. If I have something that has a dot in front of it, that is a class. So if an HTML element has a class associated with it, it will have this dot, and then this is the class. If it doesn't have anything in front of it, it's simply that HTML element. And then for some of these, I may see a hashtag. That would be the ID of that particular element. As you're looking at these different CSS rules, if you're not sure what a rule does, I highly recommend you go ahead and Google it. So if I open up a new window here and I just search CSS and paste that rule, I am a big fan of the W3 Schools website. This is excellent to give me an idea of what a particular rule will do. It'll also give me the listing of the different options that I could have as part of that attribute. And then oftentimes I have an example where I can see how that particular rule is being applied. So I have this little pineapple image over here on the right-hand side. If I change the CSS to say float left and I hit run, I'll see my pineapple move over to the other side. So this is a nice, easy way to test out individual CSS rules before I apply them to my main site to make sure that any adjustments or changes that I'm making will give me the results that I want. With that said, as a caveat to any of you who are following along with me in your live implementation, any adjustments or changes that you're seeing here, I would recommend you hold back on making those changes if your site is live, because you don't want to be playing with any of these particular resource files in a live site. If it's a sandbox, by all means, go ahead and play with things and see what changes. But next month's Training Tuesday will focus on how to make these design changes without wrecking your whole site. Continuing down the line, we're going to go back to our pages list view. Any of the CSS that you have here, if you make an adjustment to it, will need to be published out before you'll see that CSS change reflected on your live site as well as inside OU Campus. Back to my _resources folder, the next option that I have here is my images folder. Depending upon the information architecture of your implementation, you may or may not have an images folder in this location. So I've seen some schools who will have an images folder in this _resources section, and it only holds the global images that are used across the board. So for example, I have the logo of my particular school here. So that's being pulled in. It's used on multiple sites or multiple different pages across my site, so it's more of a global resource. I've seen some schools who will take this images folder and then subdivide it into different subsections, and they'll have the images for each subdirectory here. I've seen some schools who will put an images folder right at the root of their site and put all the images there. I've seen some schools who will take each subdirectory and create an images folder in each one of those. So your particular implementation may have a different information architecture than what you're seeing here inside my sandbox. Back out to my _resources. The next option I have here are my include files. Depending upon your implementation, you may have different file extensions for your include files. So if we take a look at the header, I have 4 different header include files here that all end in .inc. I've seen other implementations where these files might end in HTML or SHTML or PHP or whatever for that particular site. For each one of these, if I click into, say, contact, it's giving me right here the call list today with a telephone number and an email address. If I look at my live web page, it is populating out the call list today and the email address. You'll notice there's some additional stylizing here that's adding these icons next to it. This information is getting pulled in using this include file. Back out, I have my logo. Here's my logo as it appears here, and it's appearing up in this header up at the top. I have my navigation top. You see where it says calendar, directory, A through Z. Back on my live site, here's calendar, directory, and A through Z. And then finally, I have my search include file. That's populating out. Some stylizing has changed in order for it to match my school's coloration, but there's my search. So one of the benefits to having your include files as one of these HTML-based files is that you can set it up for auto navigation being added if you're using it for your side navigation. So when someone creates a brand new page, if it's one of these type of files, you may have the option inside your instance to automatically add that page into the navigation. These are often edited either through our classic editor, which is here, or you may see it just as a source code editor. Depending upon your implementation and the technical background of your editors, instead of having include files like this, you may instead see a PCF. Your PCF include files are going to have more of the stylizing that you would expect to see on your live site, and it'll also give you these editable regions. So when I click inside this editable region, I'll see this whole mega nav is now split up into a table transformation. So my snippet table transformations, my XSL can be applied through this type of file, so I can make it a little bit easier for my editors to navigate through it. So I can see here I have my About section with this whole chunk of text and a bunch of links over here on the right-hand side. Going back to my live site, here's my About with my chunk of text and all of my links over on the right-hand side. So this navigation here, this mega nav, is being created using this table transformation here inside the PCF. One of the really good tools to have when you're looking at include files will help you figure out where those files are going to be pulled in to create your site. So let's say, for example, I'm looking at the footer. I'm looking at this links-mid.inc. I know this include file is getting pulled in, but I want to know where it's getting pulled in. Which particular file is referencing this include? Well, I can do that by using the find portion of my find and replace. So I'm going to click and hold and highlight the file path. I'm going to Content, Find and Replace. I'll go ahead and open up a new tab for it. And I'm going to find that entire path. Scrolling down, I'm going to focus only on the underscore resources folder and click Find. It'll search through all of the files in there, and it tells me, hey, that particular path is inside my common.xsl. Opening up that common.xsl, I'll check out the page and look at it in source. And I'm going to search again for that exact path. So I can scroll down and see, hey, here's where a copy of that include file at this particular file path is being included. So if at some point in the future I wanted to change this links include file and I wanted to include a different one, I could come into this XSL and add on, say, maybe -2. So now I'm going to have a different file being pulled in as part of that include. Now this works well for any of my include files that have that particular extension on it, that INC. My PCF include files are not going to be published out keeping that PCF extension. Instead, if I look at the source editor for this PCF file, I'll see at the top a PCF style sheet statement, and it'll tell me all the way at the end the include or the file extension after this has been published will be INC. So I could easily search for this whole chunk and then just trade out the PCF for INC. But if I'm not sure what the extension is, I can still do a find and replace for it. But I'll just take out that file extension at the end. Well, it looks like I have a space at the beginning. I'll take that out too. Again, still searching my underscore resources. I'll find there. And again, in the common.xsl, that's where that mega nav is getting pulled in. And it confirms right here, yep, it is that INC file. All right. Continuing down the line, as I look at my underscore resources folder, take a step back out. My next option here is JS. These are my JavaScript files. So exactly what you see inside of this particular folder is going to be unique to your implementation. So depending upon what is included in your final website design, you may or may not see more or less of the files than you have here. Again, I have a framework base, so I still have my foundations JavaScript in here. And then anytime on your site where you see interactivity or animations, so if you slide over something and it flies away, that's probably something that's being generated using JavaScript. You'll also notice in here I have a folder called LDP. In newer implementations, your live delivery platform module, which includes your image galleries and your forms, is pulled out and placed into a separate folder just called LDP at the underscore resources level. So from there, inside that folder, you'll find any of your CSS, JavaScript, and server-side script that all relate to your live delivery platform. Taking a step back out, Mashup is a module that is included inside my sandbox, but since it's an additional module, I'm going to go ahead and skip over it because if you don't have this module, you won't see it inside your particular implementation. You will, however, see OU. So inside OU, we'll start by looking at the editor. You have lots of different files in here, but the two I really want to point out to you guys here are my styles.txt and my Wysiwyg Dot Css. My styles.txt is going to populate out which classes I can apply. So let's go ahead to one of these other tabs. And we're going to open up an actual page. So let's say the library page. When I'm editing a region here, and let's just take this whole thing and delete it out, just so that way we can see things a little bit cleaner. From my drop-down list here, my styles, I'll see a listing of all of the individual styles that can be applied. This is controlled using that styles.txt file. So in order to apply something new to it, on a new line, I'm going to start with a period, and I'm going to put in a particular class that I already know exists inside my CSS files. I'm going to tab over. And in tabbing over, I'm going to put in the friendly text. So this is what will appear inside that particular dropdown. If I wanted to make this a block level element instead of inline, I would tab again and just type the word block. And then it would apply this particular class to the whole block level. I'll go ahead and hit save. Back to my library, I'll refresh the page. I'll click back into my editable region here. So now when I look at styles, you'll see down at the bottom, I have blue, but it looks like blue is not actually a style that's available inside my system, which is why I'm seeing it with that little X. You do want to confirm and make sure any classes that you're adding into your styles dropdown are actual classes that are inside your CSS. Other things to be aware of when we're looking at the styles list. This styles list not only appears here, but it'll also appear in my insert or edit images. So when I have an image I'm about to apply, I'll see the exact same list of classes or styles here inside my class dropdown. So you may have classes that are being applied only to images. In that case, you'd want to kind of follow this example where it has red bold and then in parentheses text, telling my end users, hey, this particular class is only for text. Maybe you'd have a separate one that in parentheses said images. So this particular class is only for images. Again, you would have the exact same classes drop down when you're inserting or adding a link. Again, here's my classes. Again, I have the same list. So from that one styles.txt, it's going to populate all three of those classes and styles listings. So clarifying to your end users, this particular class is for text only, this particular class is for links, can be very helpful. Back into my underscore resources inside the editor, the next thing I have here is my Wysiwyg Dot Css. This CSS file is going to instruct the actual just edit and explain to it how to display things inside of the editor. We'll come back to this again later when we talk about snippets, but an important thing that I want you to be aware of is that each editable region is going to choose this particular CSS as well as the particular styles inside the code of the page. So if I come back to the library, I look at the source code, and I scroll down to that main content region. Here it is. So here's my OUC div, that is the main content region. And then I have an OUC editor tag here, and it's going to identify the CSS path. So this is going to be a root relative path that points to the CSS file that I want to use inside my Wysiwyg. And I'll have another attribute called CSS menu. This again is going to point to another root relative path that'll give me the styles.txt file. So if I wanted different editors on my page to have different class drop-down options, I could create additional styles files and call this, say, styles1.txt and just call it here inside that CSS menu. Back into my underscore resources. Back inside OU, let's take a look at templates. So you're going to see my templates here are very, very organized. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how organized your individual pieces are. So for some of your implementations, you may be seeing all sorts of different files listed at the same level. You may be seeing different modules having their own folders, but everything else is sitting at this particular level. Either way, it doesn't matter. As long as inside your site settings, you're defining up to this folder, anything from this point forward, any child elements will still be picked up by the system. So let's take a look at interior. And I go ahead and do a filter for interior. And you're going to notice there are 3 different files in here that all have the same name. These all work together. When I'm looking at my interior image file, this happens to be a .gif. It could be a PNG. It could be a JPEG. It doesn't matter. But opening it up, I can see I have my new interior page image. This image is what's populating out that thumbnail when I hit plus new. So if I go back to content pages and I hit plus new, here's my interior page, and there's that image that I was looking for. So if I go back to interior, I'm looking at these 2 particular files. As long as the name of the image and the name of the TCF file up to that file extension match, the system will automatically find them. So as long as these 2 are pulled together, it will automatically be populated. So if I go to, say, set up templates, each one of these images is automatically getting pulled in because it has the same name as that TCF. The TCF is my template control file. It is essentially what is going to be populating the list of questions that you get inside this form field. So page title, description, left column, right column. If I open up the interior TCF, I'm going to be able to see here, here's my title, here's my left column, there's my prompt left column, right column. So this particular file controls that form field. It controls what questions are being asked. After those questions have been asked, that's where the TMPL comes in. The TMPL is kind of like a stamp. So it's taking the information that was created inside the TCF and handing it over using these statements here that are echo var. So it looks like a regular comment using the %symbol echo var, and it is echoing the variable that was input into the title region in that TCF. So that's kind of a brief overview of how your templates work. It's these 3 all working in conjunction. I have a question that says, we presently have all of our TCF files in the main folder of underscore resources /OU templates. If we divide these up into subfolders, does that affect future editing and publishing of web pages already created with the templates that they were all in the main folder? No, it won't affect anything. So moving your TCFs here, as long as you stay inside that the setup settings and child folders in, it will not affect anything that you've already created out there. Once the page is created, it changes from a TMPL to a PCF. All of those values get handed over, and they're included in the PCF.
I do want to say, if just in general, if you're moving any sort of resources around, make sure there's no hard-coded URLs referencing them in any other pages. I don't think that should be an issue with some of these template files, but just as a general practice, because any hard-coded URLs written into, say, the code of a page will not be affected by dependency manager. So if you are going to be moving files, as a best practice, you want to make sure that any hard-coded URLs are changed to reflect that as well.
An excellent point.
So.
Your images may fall under that category. If under Setup Templates, Instead of using the thumbnails, you're instead using a URL. If you move those particular images, you're going to want to update where this thumbnail URL is pointing to make sure that that is now pointing to the right location. Great point. All right. Moving back out into underscore resources, we'll move down into scripts. So this is where you're going to be holding your server-side scripts. It's going to be completely dependent upon your implementation, upon the modules that you have, and upon your production server, what you'll see in here. So for mine, I'm going to see different PHP type files. You may see C#, you may see C. It all depends upon your implementation. My next option down is snippets. So snippets, the code for them are contained in here. So we looked at that accordion one on the other page. Inside my generic folder, and again, I'm one of those crazy people who likes everything really organized. So I have a category called generic. And this is where my accordion HTML lives. As you can see, it's a .html file, so it'll pop up inside my classic editor. I can edit it in source. And taking a look at source, it is literally just a table. This particular table is going to be transformed through the table transformation into the accordion that I'll see on a published page. Excuse me. So essentially what's happening here is this particular chunk of code is going to get dropped on a page. Let's look at that library page. Let's edit the main content. I'm just going to delete everything off to make life easier to see. And we're going to put in, under my generic, the accordion snippet. Perfect. So here it is, here it lives. If I save and exit, and I look at the source code here, I'm going to see inside that main editable region, it is literally just a table. It's that chunk of HTML that's been put in here. I have a question here that says you're putting your snippets into underscore resources /ou/snippets. Is that bad? No. It can be, your snippets folder can be put anywhere, because when you are linking the HTML or that code file to the snippet itself, you dictate what the path is. So it can be located anywhere as long as when you set it up, you point it to the right location. All right, so here's my table. This table is going to be transformed using XSL. It is going to be styled inside that Wysiwyg editor using that Wysiwyg Dot Css. So back in here, I have my helper text for each one of these. Let's take a look at that Wysiwyg Dot Css again. Nope, haha, too far. OU editor, Wysiwyg Dot Css. From here, I'm going to search for accordion. So this section here is my table transformation helper text. So it's telling me the width of each one of those columns as they appear inside the Wysiwyg editor. And then this content section here is what is actually going to appear as that helper text. So if you have snippets that have helper text that you want to clarify or you want to change a little bit, you can go ahead and make those adjustments there. I have a question for why there are JavaScript and script. In general, I think we're asking why is there inside the underscore resources a JS and a scripts folder. It is an organizational way to keep track of the different types of files you have inside your underscore resources. So if you have particular JavaScript files or server-side scripts that are dependent or that are necessary in order for your particular website design to work, they'll be located here. All right, so we got that, it's good. If you wanted to create new snippets, you would go inside the snippets folder wherever you happen to have it put. You would put in either uploading your HTML from here, or if you have a new page wizard that just creates a new file as a new blank file, you could do that and literally type out the HTML here. So you'd create your snippet. You'd want to, if it is a table transformation, add those transformations to the XSL. We'll jump into that in a second. And then you'd want to link it to like your OU Campus platform to identify it as a snippet. So to do that, you go to Content Snippets, choose the category that you would like it to be in, hit plus new, and this is where you're dictating the file path. So it really can be anywhere inside your particular implementation for where your snippet files are located. If you move your snippets, you will need to update each and every one of these snippet files to make sure the path is correct. And you're also going to want to put your snippets somewhere where it's going to be protected from the rest of your organization, just to make sure no one accidentally finds themselves inside the snippets folder and accidentally, like, you know, deletes off all your accordions. That could be awkward. All right. Back to our content pages, _resources. The last folder we have in here is XSL. So lots of stuff happening inside XSL. Again, it'll be very dependent upon your particular implementation, how many individual files you see in here. You'll see I have all of these extra folders. These are for the different types of modules that are included inside my implementation, so you may or may not have them. Some things that you definitely will see. You'll have a common.xsl, and you'll have an _shared folder. So let's start from the page and work backwards. Looking at this library page, if I go into the source of it, you're going to see it's going to be pulling in a PCF style sheet. This is what we looked at before to figure out what the extension would be after it publishes out. This will tell me which XSL file is initially going to be pulled in. So this particular page is pulling in my interior.xsl. All right, let's go to that one. So from here, let's open up interior.xsl. It'll give me some namespace definitions at the top, and then you're going to see this section that tells me it's now importing common.xsl and the _shared at breadcrumbs.xsl. All right, let's go look at common.xsl. We'll open up another page. Here's common. Common's again defining some namespace, and then it's importing in my XSL from that _shared folder, template matches snippets, variables, functions, OU forms. So each one of these, as I get a little bit further down the line, is going to be pulling in more and more different types of XSL. So we've taken your actual page and basically divided it out into pieces to make it easier for you to be able to edit on a single section basis. So the common.xsl is going to be pulled in, I would say 99.999% of the time, by every single one of your page types. This is what's creating that HTML structure for your live pages. On the actual page, you're going to notice, here's my library page. I have head code, body code, foot code tags, but I don't have an HTML tag. I don't have a header. I don't have a footer. The only things that are happening here on the page level are the actual content inside those editable regions. Starting at the common.xsl, as I scroll down a little bit, you're going to see here's my HTML tag. Here's the head tag. And then it's pulling in different pieces of content from either other include files or from information coming from the page. So here's pulling in the title of the page as a metadata, and it's pulling in that title from the page itself, from that OUC properties tag. Continue to scroll down, it's pulling in my CSS, and then it starts to build out the different pieces of my page. So here's my body tag. I'm going to have a couple of different things in here that are pulling in, again, information from different locations. So this is pulling in the body code, the entire node of it. So not just the text or content inside of it, give me the whole node. This is pulling in a template called header, and actually the header is on this page down at the bottom. So here is that definition of that template that we're calling header. So it's the header that'll have my emergency notifications or part of my particular implementation. Here's the search bar, here's the logo on the top navigation, here's my mega navigation. So all of those are pieced together down here at the bottom, but up at the top, all I'm doing is calling that particular template and saying, hey, put the header here. I have a new section, and in this section, it's calling the template content. That's the content in my implementation that's coming in from that first XSL file. So if I go back to interior.xsl and I search for templates-content, here is the content of this particular page type. So here's the main content region, side navigation, quick links, side content. It's all built into that actual HTML structure here. And then when it's published out as a hard HTML file. So that gives you a generalized idea of what you're seeing inside that first XSL getting pulled in, as well as your common.xsl. You'll also remember up here there's a whole bunch of different things inside that underscore shared folder that are all getting imported in. So let's take a look at those real quick. Inside the underscore shared, your breadcrumbs may or may not exist here depending upon your implementation. If your website design doesn't have breadcrumbs, well, you won't need breadcrumbs.xsl. Data sets and OU forms are part of your live delivery platform using your forms. So if you don't have that as part of your implementation, you won't see those. The data sets gives you the listing of all the data sets that you can call as part of a form question. So if instead of typing every month in, say, a dropdown, I could call the data set called month, and it'll automatically populate all of these different options. My OU forms are going to give me the list of all of my predefined attributes. So when I'm creating a form, I have an advanced field where I can call each one of these different things. So if I wanted to add, say, an additional class to a particular question, I could use the advanced attribute add class. So these are all available here, so you can take a look at them and see what you can use in conjunction with your forms. Your functions is going to define different functions that we use inside OU Campus, essentially to pull everything together. So any of those functions are going to have an OU colon at the beginning, and then they're going to give you a little bit of additional information here based upon the parameters that are being used. So anything that starts off as an XSL colon function, that's a function that we're using inside OU Campus. OU variables. For your newer implementations, you'll probably see this as just variables.xsl. Very similar to the forms XSL, this one is just defining the different variables that we use. So when we say OU colon site, what are we defining here? And it gives you some additional information as part of the comments to tell you what these different things are. Coming back, I have my snippets. So I mentioned before, my accordion table transformation looks like a table inside my Wysiwyg editor, but inside the snippets.xsl, it'll tell my XSL how to change it. So here is the XSL for this particular accordion. So instead of having table rows and table headings, this is actually changing it into my description list. So it is taking in the table data and changing it into another form. And then these particular DLs, DTs, DDs, that's what the CSS is applying the stylizing to. So it's just kind of a middle step that takes that table, takes the content into the individual cells, changes it into the format that the CSS needs. So I've seen some snippet.xsl type files that instead of changing it into a DL, DT, DD, setup will instead change each of those pieces of content into a separate div with a different class. So that way it can be called upon through the CSS. For some implementations, you may not have a separate snippets.xsl file. Instead, it may be included inside your template matches. Template matches are going to give you global templates that are used across the board. And then are pulled in from your different XSL files. So you may see the interior XSL or common XSL calling different templates. If they don't exist on those particular XSL files, they're probably in here because they're global. All right, so that was a very quick, very brief run through of your entire _resources folder. So we've walked through all the different things that you see here. The only thing we didn't really touch upon are the individual module files that you may or may not have depending upon the files that you're looking at. If you've been walking along with me and clicking on and opening things, I do highly recommend opening up your gadget sidebar and checking out your mycheck.content, because as you can see, I've grabbed a whole bunch of different things just looking at them. And if you don't need it, to check it back in. before you log out of the system today. Are there any additional questions, comments, or concerns about your underscore resources folder?
All right, well, while we're waiting to see if anybody has any sort of questions they want to get in, or if maybe you're thinking about what questions, I just want to talk about the Training Tuesday we have scheduled for next month, for February. So it's going to be on, hold on, it's going to be February 27th, sorry, not February 29th. It's going to be February 27th, so the last Tuesday of February, and we're going to be sort of building off of some of the things we've learned here and talking about how to test design changes without wrecking your site. So stay tuned for that. The registration link will be up in probably a week or so. And then also with today's training, if you liked what you saw today, if you want to do more, if you want a hands-on version, I would register for our conference, because we are going to be having an hour-and-a-half workshop on this same topic where you're going to be able to get into even more depth about what we covered today. Conference, March 25th to 29th. It's going to be in lovely sunny Anaheim, California, right by Disneyland. We're going to be going to California Adventure as part of our events. So you can register at outc18.com. It's going to be a really fun time, and I hope to see as many of you there as you can make it. And if with that, okay, we have another question. Can I get a copy of Sandbox sample? So you should have been provided with a Sandbox when you initially joined us. If you would like another, I would say reach out to...
I can check in on that one.
Sales? Okay, yeah, you can check in for that. Perfect.
So I'll check in and see if that particular school has a Sandbox, and then I'll be able to provide the login information for it.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent. I want to thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you were able to get a little bit of information out of this. And now as you stare at your underscore resources folder, it's not as scary.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and stay tuned for further Training Tuesdays.